Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. I'm Mike Drotis, Bible teacher and preacher, and you have tuned in to my YouTube channel, Solving the Prophetic Puzzle. On this channel, we study end times, we study the last days, we study prophecy, and we especially study the rapture. Something that I've learned after doing this channel now for almost a year is that if you want to understand what God is doing, what God is up to, then get on His calendar. God has a calendar. God has a timeline. God created time. So He understands exactly how it works. In the beginning, God created the earth and the universe in 6 days. And on the seventh day, He rested. God then told His people, the Hebrews, to do the same thing. Work 6 days, and on the seventh day, rest, have a Sabbath. God explained to the Hebrews to use the moon as their monthly time meter. It makes sense. 30 days, the moon travels through its entire cycle. And God also instructed them, and it's explained in Leviticus, about the Shemitah cycle, a 7-year cycle that God uses. He told them in Leviticus, for 6 years, work the land, but in the 7th year, let it rest. That would be one cycle. The 7th year would be the Shemitah year. Then it would start a new cycle again. After 7 Shemitah cycles, you would have 49 years. On the 50th year would be the year of Jubilee. The year of Jubilee, everything went back, the land went back to its original owner, and debts were released. This is God's timetable. When Daniel spoke to the angel Gabriel, we often refer to Daniel when we talk about end times because he got great revelation about the end times. The angel Gabriel talked to him about the last days, especially the last 7 years. In Daniel chapter 9, we read that Gabriel talked to him. Daniel was concerned about his nation, concerned if they would get out of captivity, concerned if they would ever go back and rebuild their city, concerned about a lot of things. And Gabriel spoke to him and said, 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city. Now Daniel was Jewish, so he understood exactly what Gabriel was saying. 70 sevens. 490 years, 70 Shemitah years are given to your people. And sure enough, after 69 weeks, you could read Daniel chapter 9 in detail, and you would see that after 69 weeks, Messiah was cut off. That left 1 week for the Jews, the 70th week. At that point, when Jesus, who died for our sins, was cut off, God stopped the time for the nation of Israel. We are now living in suspended time, or a timeout, or the times of the Gentiles. There is still 1 week left in the future, which is Daniel's 70th week, which some refer to as the 7-year tribulation period. We're not there yet. We also discovered in Matthew chapter 24, when Jesus was answering questions about when He would return for His second coming and what would be the sign of His coming, He told His disciples, He said, in the end there'll be wars and rumors of wars, famines and pestilence, earthquakes in various places. These are the beginning of sorrows. That was a clue. We have always had wars, rumors of wars, famines, and pestilence. But He said these were the beginning of sorrows. Other translations read, these are the birth pains. As a woman is getting ready to deliver a baby, the birth pains get more intense and they get more frequent. We are seeing all of these signs happen with more intensity and more frequency. Then Jesus said that the nation that saw the fig tree blossom and bloom, the generation that saw that would see Him return. Look at verse 32. Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know it is near, at the doors. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. We saw this fig tree blossom and bloom when Israel was reestablished as a nation in 1948. We've seen it. We are that generation. We saw the fig tree blossom and bloom. We are going to see the Lord return. Well, what's a generation? How about Psalms? Psalms chapter 90 gives us some insight. Psalm 90:10. The days of our lives are 70 years, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years. Yet their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. I love the part where it says we fly away. I think that's a clue about the rapture. But we saw Israel established in 1948. If you add 80 years to that, that puts you around 2028. Keep that in the back of your head. Now looking at the Shemitah cycles. We are now in the year 5782. As of September 6, 2021, we moved into a new Jewish new year, September 6, 2021. This is a Shemitah year. This is the last year in a 7-year cycle. Next year, we'll start a new cycle. Next September, we'll start a new Shemitah cycle, a new 7-year cycle. We are in the 10th cycle, Shemitah cycle, since the reestablishment of Israel in 1948. 10 signifies testimony, law, responsibility, and completeness. Next September starts Shemitah cycle 11, since the reestablishment of Israel. 11 means disorder, chaos, and judgment. Next Shemitah cycle could very well be the 7-year tribulation period. Daniel's 70th week. We could see that happen. We could be that close to seeing that happen. Let's continue on to talk about God's timetable. Psalm 94 and 2 Peter 3:8 basically say, one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. Jesus ended his ministry in most Bibles will, if you study it out, he ended his ministry around 29 AD, 30 AD. Hosea 6:2. Love this verse. Come, let us return to the Lord, for he is torn, but he will heal us. He is stricken, but he will bind us. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the 3rd day, he will raise us up. If Jesus did end his earthly ministry at 29 or 30 AD, and one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, if you add 2 days or 2,000 years to the end of Jesus' earthly ministry, that would put you right at 2029, 2030. The ending of the 11th Shemitah cycle and the beginning of the 12th Shemitah cycle from the reestablishment of Israel. And 12 means God's power and authority, as well as serving as a perfect governmental foundation. It also symbolizes completeness of Israel. This is exciting. We are seeing things come together. We are seeing God's timing come together. But there is one more piece of the puzzle. Rabbis, Bible scholars, pastors, and teachers all go with this same teaching, that mankind's timeline from creation will last from 6,000 years. The 6-day theory. One day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. Starting on the 7th day will be the millennial reign of Jesus, which Jesus was talking about in Matthew chapter 24, when he would come back and establish that millennial reign. But we've got a problem. We are at year 5782, a long way off from 6,000. Because you understand that this year is from the 5782 is the Hebrew year. What they have determined from being from the beginning of creation till now is 5782. We're a long way off from 6,000. But not so fast. If you begin to study, if you go back from Genesis and go back in Exodus, it's easy to figure out how many years and where we're at. Because of genealogy, it tells you how old each person was. We don't know their exact birthday, but we know how long they lived. Interesting fact, Abraham was born exactly 1,948 years from creation. In other words, Abraham was born 1948 years from creation. I love that little fact. Israel was reestablished in 1948. So for a while, you can be right on tracking the years. It can go pretty good for a while, but then when you get to Kings, you got issues. The timing of the destruction of the first temple, people aren't sure as to that date. Daniel mentions 4 Persian kings, but there are actually 13. So it's hard to find out exactly how many years we are away from creation. The rabbis do admit this. I've read and studied and found they do admit this, that we are closer to 6,000 years than you think. They have said that we are 200 and 210 missing years. Well, when I discovered that, I said, well, there you go. If next year is 5783, beginning the new Shemitah, number 11, the 7 years of chaos, possibly Daniel's 70th week, the tribulation period, possibly. If you add 210 missing years, that makes 5783, actually 5993. Add 7 years for that 7-year Shemitah, Daniel's 70th week. Boom. 6,000 years. One day is 1,000 years. 6,000 year timeline of man would be up. After that, you would go into the 12th Shemitah. 12 symbolizes what? Government foundation, completeness of Israel. It all seems to work out perfectly well. But we've got a problem. Because I just put in a year that worked. What about the birthdays? What about other things that we don't know? We don't really have enough information. We don't have enough to go on to exactly know what year we're at. We do know that the rabbis themselves have said we're closer to 6,000 than we think. So I began to pray about this. How do I solve this? I prayed and studied, and I got an answer. While I was praying, the Lord spoke to me. Now I know some of you get uptight if I say the Lord spoke to me. He didn't speak to me audibly. He spoke to me in a soft, still voice inside my spirit. But I know that voice. I've been walking with the Lord a long time. And as I was praying and asking God why I could not find the answer, why I can't solve this puzzle, why I can't find out exactly where we are at on God's timetable, I felt that God said 3 words to me. You know enough. I felt like God said, you know enough. Now, after thinking about that for a few days, I think that message is not just for me, but for all of us who are diligently studying and determining this prophetic puzzle as we draw closer and closer to the Lord's return. We know enough. For right now, anyway, we know enough. For the present time, we know enough. After all, no one can know the exact day or hour that the Lord Jesus is going to return. We just have to be ready. Maybe Daniel knew, but God told him to seal it up. And I think for now, we have to be satisfied that we are very, very close. If we're very, very close to the 6,000 years, then we're even that much closer to the rapture. We are very close. And for now, that's enough. Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. Thanks for your comments. Keep watching. Every week I have a new video about the end times, the rapture, or some dream or revelation that I'd like to share with you. So until next time, God bless you.